Welcome to The Art of Making, EIT Manufacturing's podcast where we talk to leading entrepreneurs, technologists, researchers, and policymakers about the state and future of the European manufacturing industry. I am your host, Maxime Montmorency, and this is The Art of Making. We had a very insightful chat with Hannes Hunschofsky, the managing director of EIT Manufacturing East. He has over 40 years of global leadership experience in the manufacturing industry and has led over 2,000 people on multiple continents.
Thank you so much. You're the first guest. I mean, it's very close for you. Of course, you're just coming down the stairs, the first guest in our impromptu studio, so he's not joining online. Welcome and thank you so much for having the time or making the time to be here today. I've just introduced you as someone with 40 years of global leadership experience in manufacturing companies. I think you're the perfect person to talk to about global leadership.
Well, thank you so much, Maxime. Thank you for the invitation and good luck to your podcast project. I think it's really exciting. Yeah, it's a topic that I don't usually dive into a lot because it's not my core business, and it's definitely not my core business at EIT Manufacturing. But it's a skill set that has followed me over 40 years, and from small groups of 3 people to a maximum of about 2,500 people in global leadership positions have me, taught a thing or two. And I'm more than happy to share some of the insights with you today.
Yeah, fantastic. You started off pretty young, right, in your first management or leadership position. How was that for you?
Well, it's actually, so I had, at my studies at the University of Innsbruck, I had a formal education for leadership. And I was working with a company that was called GE Jenbacher. It's now called INNIO. It's a manufacturer of cogeneration units out of Tirol. And I worked there next to my studies in project management as well as in marketing later on. And when I was done with my studies, and actually based on my master thesis, they offered me a job as the vice president for sales and marketing at age 25, which was on the one hand extremely exciting, on the other hand extremely scary. Having the responsibility for $500 million in sales, having the responsibility for almost 60 team members.
Already,
yes. So that was very exciting. And then because of that position, I was also moved into general responsibility of some of our subsidiaries, becoming general manager in the Netherlands, in Denmark, in Germany, in Italy. So yes, I was thrown in fairly early, and I was thrown in, at a time with sink or swim kind of approach. And so it was an interesting experience because I recognized fairly quickly that leadership cannot be learned by being taught.
in the books.
In the books, right,
Yeah.
out of the books. And that continued later on. I don't know how many dozens of leadership trainings I did over the course of the years. And of course, you learn also a lot by mimicking the good leaders that you entail during the course of the time. At the same time, you learn also from the bad leaders, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so the not to do's. But what I realized over time, and I started noting down things about 20 years ago, was that there are a couple of things that I think are important for existing and future leaders to have a better understanding of, and they are not taught, not in any of the courses I've been, not in any of the workshops I've been. So I put that together into a little booklet, and I called the 10 leadership lessons that nobody will teach you. And just by the response I've gotten over the years, and I've taught that at several occasions as speaker on various conferences. The feedback was always, "Wow, we never thought about that," right? Or this was the first time I heard that, but you're absolutely right. So that's why I put that together and I make that available. Again, EIT Manufacturing is not necessarily the organization to teach you leadership, but I think it's an interesting and different focus. And manufacturing companies, large manufacturing companies, need a lot of leadership. They're a large organization, international organization, where you have also the cultural differences that you need to take care of. So I think it's good for people to hear that and know a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why we're here today, to talk a little bit about these leadership lessons that people don't teach you. So you started teaching them.
Exactly.
So what attracted you to leadership? You're 25, just out of university, and they tell you, look here, you can be VP of sales and marketing. Why did you say yes?
Nothing. I couldn't, until that point of time when I was asked to step into that role, I couldn't even have imagined to become a leader. I was, an educated engineer. I was doing engineering stuff, and then I was doing marketing stuff because I finished my studies there. And it was never in the wildest dreams that I was thinking that I'm going to be, a leader going forward. This offer and the people who made the decision to put me in that position gave me then some, basis to believe that they see something in me that I don't, or don't yet. And so I said, okay, can I think about it? And they said, yeah, you can think. And it was just before Christmas that I was asked. And I said, I'm going to think about it over the Christmas break. I'm going to give you an answer in January. And during that time, I had a lot of discussions with a lot of people, including some key team members, and their reinforcement, strengthened me in the decision to take that challenge and grow into a leadership position.
So you mentioned before that a lot of these things cannot be taught, right? So I mean, you've also had leadership courses at university, right? And you hear a number of things that you cannot really put into practice immediately. And definitions of leadership are a dime a dozen,
Yeah.
if we're honest. So what is for you a leader?
That's a very good question that cannot be answered within one podcast. But there are 4 research streams where scientists are trying to figure out what is the right leadership person. Yeah, from being born as a leader, so personality traits, to learning how to become a leader, and all those research directions have valid inputs, but have also flaws. So it's a very complex thing to say, what's a perfect leader and what's not a perfect leader. What I try to do with my students is to make a clear differentiation between a manager and a leader. And for me there, the most important thing is that a leader has to have a vision. And there are colleagues of mine and researchers that are saying CEOs should be renamed to CVOs, Chief Vision Officers, that give you the long-term perspective, that give you an opportunity to look forward and go get to a goal, a long-term objective. And that's always what I was trying to do, so that I saw it to paint as colorful as possible, a beacon, a picture out there where we want to get to, and then develop a strategy that helps them to get there. And then the third point is you need to be always there to move away the obstacles that they encounter in going in this direction. So those 3 things for me is clearly leadership, whereas the day-to-day activities of managing employees and dealing with operative issues, that's more on the management side.
Right, right. That's interesting. I had a discussion with a friend a few weeks ago also about what is leadership. We feel there are too many managers and not enough leaders these days, perhaps. And we also came to the conclusion that leadership is serving people. It's not about being in the spotlight, right? Okay, maybe you have a public image and that kind of stuff, but it's really about serving your employees, your stakeholders, and it's about enabling. Like you said, you move stuff out of the way and you enable people to become the best versions of themselves. both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I totally agree. And becoming a leader, and this is actually my chapter one, lifestyle. You better should understand what you're getting into, because leadership means giving up your most of your personal interest and activities, because you are so much focusing on the folks you're working with. Four major stakeholder groups in every organization are the shareholders, your team members, the customers, and the suppliers. And then you have an ecosystem around that. And one thing I've learned over 40 years, in some cases very painfully, is that these leadership groups over time need to be balanced. You cannot work only for shareholders, and you cannot only work for team holders. By the way, that would be a union leader. But if you're trying to run a successful business, you need to balance the interest of those four stakeholder groups very, very well. Which doesn't say that everybody gains in every minute or year an advantage, but it needs to be balanced over time, because otherwise you get a lot of issues. And I have very often the situation that young students come and say, Hannes, if I want to be a global leader, what do I need to do in order to make that work? And I always tell them, the first thing is you go back home and talk to your spouse or significant other and say, hey, honey, I made the following decision. I'm going to become a global leader. What does that mean? Well, I will probably be gone for 250 days a year, sleeping out of hotels, traveling all over the world. And I will not be here if you need me, whether somebody dinged the car in the parking lot or you have a flat. In the extreme, to the first spoken words of our children, there will be birthdays and Christmas and others occasions where I will not be here, I will not be with you, and even if you have the flu and need to lay in bed, I can take care of you because I might be in a completely different part of the world. And if your spouse then says, okay, honey, I understand and I accept that, because if this is what you want to do, I support this, then you have a good chance to make it. Because if that's not the case, then you will either not be married for long or not have that significant others for long in your life. You will be very lonely. So you need to put those cards on the table. I was extremely lucky insofar as I met my wife at a time when I was already doing that. So for her, it was not new. She knew that from the very beginning. And I was also lucky because she's a very strong woman that has also her interests. She is a member of the House of Representatives in Florida. So she's traveling a lot. So that worked out quite well. But I've seen other situations where leaders very, very often had to fight on their personal behavior, personal losses and personal situation, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah. So work-life balance is not the main benefits of being a global leader.
No, work-life balance does not show up in the dictionary of leadership. That's for sure.
Okay.
This is a full-time job, and the little time you have when you're off, that needs to be dedicated to your spouse and your children. So all your personal interests, your sailboat or your golf buddies or whatever, have to step back, and that's something you really can't do, because even the brightest leadership only has 24 hours in a day.
Let's dive into that a little bit, because I've noticed, or people talk about this, people smarter than I am, this work-life balance, for example, is extremely important for younger generations, right? Work-life balance, privacy, these kind of things, including your students. So how can they maybe make this decision, or how could you help them, or leaders help them make this decision whether they want this or not?
Helping make that decision is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think once you have found your mission, once you have found what what you're doing well, and if it's leadership or contribution to leadership, and you want to go that route, then go and try it. But be aware that
Mm-hmm.
life work balance is definitely not happening, and it's clearly it's a lifestyle that you need to choose, that you need to want. And it's really cool to have all the gold, platinum, and diamond cards from all the hotels and all the airlines, and I have most of them. And yet it's something that's only on the outside really glamorous, because in very very rare occasions I have actually experienced more than uh, airports, cabs, hotel rooms, meeting rooms, and then going back with the cab to the airport and fly back. So to be able to evolve yourself in different cultures, spending time there is rather rare and far apart, because you just don't have the time for it.
Okay. Do you think there's a difference in why people want to become a leader these days, or the younger generation, as opposed to your generation, for example? Maybe it is more the glamour, perhaps, that they're seeking,
Yeah,
or not.
well, there are, to a certain extent, I do believe that from a personality trait, there are kids out there that you just have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very articulate, outgoing personalities that can easily make friends, that are natural leaders in the sense of, they create leaders and not just followers, right? So people who are able to help their colleagues and friends to also advance in whatever they try to do. And I think that this is an important trait that people can figure out for themselves. Is this something that I like to do? And I do have two sons. One is 25, the other one is 22. And my 25-year-old is clearly a born leader, because he has won national speaking competitions and stuff like that. He's very articulate. He's also in the finance arena. He's working in New York, and so he is, easily making friends. He loves to give the direction. He's also a hard worker, so he's not really looking at the work-life balance. My younger one, he's 22. He's just finishing with his math degree, and he rather sits in front of the PC and works on topics and issues that are interesting to him. So he doesn't have that natural drawn towards leadership activities.
Okay. So he doesn't really have that drive. So this is maybe something that you really need, or you can find in yourself, perhaps.
Maybe it will pop up at some point later in his life. As I said, I was not there at age 25 where Michael already is, but you definitely need to have that situation that shows you that leadership is also a qualification. You come from your studies and you learned engineering or business or whatever, and then you're trying to do the best in that job, and you never see that there is, that leadership line, this additional qualification that you need to do great things. Because one thing is for sure, you can't become a leader by having no knowledge on any of the factual sciences, right? So you have to have that basis as well. But then to see whether or not this is exciting you to, serve a team, to develop a team, to help those folks in your team to grow and become better and achieve together objectives that are way out there, it's a great satisfaction.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've led small teams as well, and this is what drew me most to that.
Yes.
You know, you're doing something together, you have the overview, and then the satisfaction of actually reaching your goals. Absolutely. I'm going to circle back a little bit to what you mentioned about these natural kind of leadership characteristics that you see in your sons. Um, Social skills, maybe a bit extroverted, articulate, these kind of things, making friends easily. There is, however, some research that shows that introverted people are actually as good or maybe even better leaders than extroverted people. Where do you think this difference lies?
Could be. I have seen those too. They are usually coming and growing out of an organization in an organization. Goes very, very close with humble leadership, which is absolutely a new trend over the last few years. That show off Mercedes driving, leader is not necessarily anymore,
Not the best leader.
opportune. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
opportune anymore. The in your face policy is definitely not a very good thing for a leader nowadays. So yeah, I've seen introverted, but definitely humbled leaders that set up good plans that are definitely giving the organization good directions. When it comes then to the motivational portion of that leadership, they need a team, a group, another person to communicate that and make people go that route. If you don't have somebody in the front saying "follow me," then it's really hard to to figure out the direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get that, but it's still about things like empathy, emotional intelligence, humble, being
Yeah,
humble and
absolutely.
making sure that you're not the one in the spotlight necessarily, because
Right.
it's not about you.
It's not. It's about you, and it's not about you. There's actually a very good YouTube video about that topic. It's about you, and it's not about you. I always say, I'm the man behind the curtain. So I leave the stage to others. I leave the stage to team members. And I'm behind the curtain, making sure that everything is lined up, everybody is following the kind of the director of a theatric event, so to speak. And unfortunately, it's very often that you have to go on stage, particularly in my job now, when you have to meet with ministers or mayors or other politicians, so then you have to take the stage just because they wanna, they want to talk to leadership. But wherever I can, I'm gonna make sure that my folks get their screen time and they get their stage time, and I think this is very important. I'm also a true believer in not taking credit. Credit where credit belongs, and that needs to be communicated throughout the organization as well.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about younger generations. What do you think that these younger generations who are now stepping into leadership positions, where they're 25, 30, 35 years old, what do you think they can bring to the table as compared to perhaps other generations?
Well, we don't forget we grew up learning out of books. Worst case, learning out of encyclopedia. But um, in the age of Google, where you can look every information up within seconds or milliseconds, they learn completely different, and they continue to learn with an extreme speed. So what they bring to the table is that they have clearly, a wider horizon, a variance of knowledge. They have also the opportunity to look into and get deeper into other topics. So they have a relatively, well rounded education usually. What they also bring to the table is a technology edge. So for I learned Excel when I was already a grown up. The other folks nowadays, they learn Excel when they go into primary school.
Yeah.
So this is all making a difference. The number one, technology affine growing up. For them, this is not something they need to learn, that's something they have.
Yeah.
The other thing that I see with young people is that they are much more open to change, to diversity. They don't believe in things. I've had friends that said, for me, it was so comforting at age 20 something to know that when I retire at age 65, I know exactly how much money I make and when I'm gonna retire, the exact date and everything, and I'm gonna stay there for my entire life. This is a person who worked with a kind of an administration here in Austria, and I don't see that in young people anymore. Young people want to experience more things. They want to choose their employer based on their opportunities to come along, to create new things, to being challenged. So they what stayed the same is that I can say from my own experience, I always have chosen my boss. So I didn't start in a company without looking very closely to who I'm working for and who is leading me, because I wanted to make sure that at least one of two things are fulfilled, and that was that he is either as a human being a really good, um,
Good person, good values.
right, a good example for me, so to speak, or professionally, so I can learn something from him. And I see that in young people now too. So when I talk to the younger folks, my students, my children, then they are very critical about looking at, who is their leader. Is that somebody that is an example? Do you want to behave like that? Are you going to be able to learn something from this person? And obviously, if both things fit together, you have a perfect situation, because then you have a leadership where you can, truly learn and develop yourself.
Okay. Let's dive a little bit into your booklets, as you call
Sure.
it so fondly. You have one chapter, I think it's called "In the Glass House." Links a bit into this perception of privacy, perhaps, or can you explain a little bit what that's about?
Yes. So once you're a leader, once you're leading a team, you are always observed in every single which way, and also in your private matters, because people try to find out, who is this guy or girl? Um, can I trust him? Is he doing what he's saying? Also in his private matters, right? How is he talking about his spouse, his children, his family? What kind of values does he follow there? So once you are in a leadership position, you are in a glass house, because people are trying to figure you out, and you are always out there, and the spotlight is very bright. I mean, people are, so showing behavior that sometimes can be seen at non-humble leaders. Very good examples also from the politics.
Sadly, yes.
Are not necessarily good behaviors that that then go its way through the entire organization, because people start talking about that as well.
Right.
So you have to be careful how you behave, how you talk about people, and make sure that you always have an optimistic outview in each and every single category, because there's nothing easier to pick up on you than if you have, if you're skeptic about anything, right? So once you start hesitating talking about certain topics, or if they realize those are concerns to you, it automatically becomes concerns to them, and so you need to try to avoid that at all costs.
Right. So it's about accountability, walking the talk, and being
Authentic.
authentic.
Yes,
That's the
absolutely.
good word. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
They see through you immediately once you try to act. So
Yeah.
in in IT, it's the WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, right?
Yes,
So same thing here.
that goes for leaders.
Yes.
Um, so you were 25 when you started
Yeah.
in a leadership position, so you had ample time to promote people, prepare people in your own organization that become managers, become leaders. Um, how do you go about that? You know, the first time you take on a leadership position, what can they expect, for example?
Well, first time leadership positions are the most difficult one and the most crucial one. Usually you get your first leadership position out of a promotion in your own organization. It's very unlikely that even if you're a very good engineer, you are hired in a leadership position in engineering management from one company to the other. So that's rather rare. So when it happens that you're promoted from out of a team, you suddenly working as a leader of a team that you were buddies with.
Yeah.
And that's creating a lot of issues and a lot of stress. And I've seen leaders fail in that position voluntarily. They come back to me and say, hey, I don't want to have that job anymore. Because if they are trying to now, lead that team, and that means also to, reprimand them if they do something wrong, and to straighten them out if it's not going the right direction, then they feel that conflict of their personal relationships towards their leadership relationship. And that can create all kinds of things. Worst case, they are not acting as your leader or manager in your organization, but more than like a union leader defending the team's wishes and desires. And so it's very, very difficult to grow out of one team and become their leader. What we have done in the past, or where we have improved in the past, is that if we take leaders out of lower ranks, so we're gonna give them a promotion, that we are not letting them work in the same team. So there's some cross functionality that we use because it made it so much easier.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. I mean, I've been in this situation before. Okay, lower stakes by far, right? And think back at university, I was president of my students' union. You know, you get elected from the current board members. And what happened, of course, is because they're students, all my friends come up to me and say, "Hey, this is awesome, congrats! I want to be the board next year," right? So in the end,
Sure.
you know, you end up, you know, with 20, 23 people on the board, you know, that you're then leading. Half of them are your best friends. And I mean, what I try to do is like draw this very clear line between this is the quote unquote professional, you know, the student union business versus this is our personal business. And that helped, I think. You couldn't straighten out everything, I suppose. But this is, of course, in this situation, this wasn't possible. But I can totally imagine that, you know, having them in the same organization but leading a different group, different cell, that probably helped.
That definitely helps, and it takes this personal relationship away, for a pretty good degree, because people who are working together every day for 8 hours, they know a lot. Many of them know privately, know the spouses, and that's very, very difficult, particularly if you continue to grow up in this organization and then you have to make a tough decision, lay off people, for example. It's very conflicting, right? To lay off people, not only because of qualification, but just knowing their background. Oh, he still has 2 kids in the college and the wife is unemployed right now. Makes you rethink your decisions, and you need to make sure that you make the best decision for the organization and not for your personal relationships, and that can be extremely difficult.
Yeah. How do you, or can you even, we talked a little bit about teaching leadership and leadership trainings, the dozen or more that you've done in your life. Is it even possible for first-time leaders to be prepared just with this kind of training?
So there are opportunities to be better prepared. What is so difficult on becoming a perfect leader, and I'm far from a perfect leader because I'm learning still, right? And the reason why I'm learning still is because I am confronted with situations that I haven't had in the past.
Okay.
So I can't pull from experience always in each and every situation. And that's what's making you a great leader, to have a lot of those experiences that you can put together. One of the lessons that I'm teaching my folks at the college is that I say, if your toolbox only has a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. So you need to try to fill up the toolbox with other instruments than a hammer, so you have more opportunities to react appropriately to the situation. So I have had bosses that were screaming all the time, which completely loses its effect after a certain period of time because he's a screamer. He screams all the time. So if you only have a hammer, it's very difficult. So to create a larger toolbox from a psychology point of view, how you're dealing with certain situations and with certain people, is certainly helping. Because it's widening your field of operation, so to speak. But you can still encounter situations where you're like, okay, how should I react to that now? And and that's helping you to grow.
Yeah. How do you go about that in these new situations? Do you confide in people? Do you talk to people?
Well, if it's not an acute situation, okay. Like I have had very strict rules when it comes to work safety on the shop floor. There, I would go and immediately talk to the person and reprimand them for not wearing eyeglasses or whatever. So you can't say, "Oh, well, we're going to do that during the next review," right? So that needs to be addressed immediately. On the other hand, not everything needs to be addressed immediately. And what I also learned is, try to get the comprehensive understanding of the situation and not just listen to the first voice telling you, "Oh, this is going on. I don't like that," because more often than not, those things are very complex things that need to be resolved and decisions need to be made. So try to get as much information. So if it's not acute, take yourself time to investigate the situation and have a better feeling on what the right decision and what the right direction would be.
Right. Last question, perhaps. Taking everything into account that we talked about, and then drawing from your experience in the industry, do we have enough leaders? Too many managers? Too few?
Well, if I have a small spectrum of feedback that I'm getting every year from my student groups, because most of them are working and studying at the same time. And in those ranks where they are active, they have very often managers. On the other hand, if I look at particularly the Austrian industry landscape, with now leadership provided by females in companies like Infineon and Siemens and others, we are getting good leaders, and I'm extremely happy to see more female leaders as well, because they are in general they are more empathetic. I guess that's one of the special treats, and it's yeah, we need more good leaders. We need more humble leaders that um, become the idols for the next generation of leaders. I would wish that we would have some more of those idols also in politics, because they are much more having much more TV time and screen time than industrial leaders, and they could give good examples. I had the unbelievable pleasure on Tuesday. I was in Berlin at the Maschinenbaugipfel, German Maschinenbaugipfel 2023, and Robert Habeck, the Vice Chancellor of Germany, was there and speaking to us. and it's unbelievable for a person in being the leader of the Green Party in Germany, being the vice chancellor, how humble he is, how well articulated he is, to a certain extent, how funny he is when he talks, and yet, the machine tool manufacturers, and there were 900 people in that room, right? Are not necessarily the big friends of the Green Party and the policy that Robert Habeck is making. And yet he was so winning and so good in the discussion that he got standing ovations. I mean, it just shows you great leaders may not always be born, but certainly can develop into such also in politics.
Absolutely. So we need more role models.
We absolutely need more role models. And yes, you make a mistake here and there, and he made a mistake with this Wärmepumpen thing there, where he was heavily criticized. But he's still, very good example for me as a leader. I've seen him once before, but this meeting with him on Tuesday just showed me that he's really one of the advanced ones. So that's great.
Okay. I think we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Okay,
But
cool.
Hannes, thank you so much for coming down the stairs. It was amazing picking your brain about leadership and global leadership. And I'm sure that we'll see some of your students and some of the young people that you've mentored over the years grow up to be impressive and exciting leaders of the new generation.
I sure hope so. Well, thank you so much, Maxime, for having me and for doing this. And again, if you have questions in this regard, or if anybody has questions in this regard, come approach me and we can discuss that. I'm more than happy to share my experience with anybody.
Fantastic. And if they can't reach you, there's always the booklet.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Hannes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to The Art of Making on the podcast platform of your choice. We're also more than happy to hear from you, so reach out through the EIT Manufacturing website, that is eitmanufacturing.eu, or find us on the usual social media channels. Take care and talk soon.